So I call to order this subcommittee meeting. The time is 6 o'clock, September the 4th, 2025.
Mickey, I've reviewed the minutes for the last two subcommittee meetings, and I'll make a motion to approve.
I second. Any discussion? With none, we approve the minutes as written.
Unanimous.
Now, that favorite word.
So wait, hang on. So you need to do two motions.
Oh, two
Motion for each
motions?
one. Yep. Mhm.
Why don't you do them all together?
I made a motion to approve
But
both.
it's two separate meetings?
Yeah, he made a motion to approve both at the same time.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Sorry.
Yep.
Never mind.
So let's adjourn.
Motion adjourned?
Motion adjourned.
I'm in favor.
Short, sweet.
All right, is that adjourned?
That's adjourned, please.
Jim, did you sign up for, over there back there for anything?
Yes, I did.
You did? Can we get those sign-ups?
None for non-agenda item, just for the non-agenda item.
No, that was the non-agenda
Yeah,
stuff?
there's none, no one signed up for non-agenda.
Okay.
Just the one agenda item. Let's see.
And so I don't mean to interrupt, but we did set it for 6:10.
Do we need to wait for a little bit then?
To meet the,
Criteria.
Appropriate criteria?
Exactly.
Can we turn the microphones back off? Planning Commission meeting for September 4th here at 6 PM. Call this to order. I'm sorry?
6:10.
6:10, call this to order. I'd like to start with the invocation. If, Mr. Haynes, can I get you to say that?
Yes. Bow your heads. Lord Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us. Let us never forget the grace you have shown us. And Lord, I pray that you give us the wisdom and knowledge to know thy will, the strength and courage to carry out thy will, the humility and understanding to accept thy will. Give us discernment when dealing with man, and let us be a shining light to all, that we may show that we believe in all that you have shown us, and trust in you, Lord. In these things we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'll leave us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got the minutes from the August 4th meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those, do we have any discussion on the minutes as written? Any changes, additions, discussion on it? All right, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we had no public comments for non-agenda items, so commission member comments. I want to say thanks for the folks in attendance tonight. Thanks for the folks that are up here, spending their evening doing this. And that's all I have as far as commission member comments. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? No? No? Okay. All right, staff comments.
Oh, thank you, sir. Just to let everybody know that the Appalachian Council of Governments will be holding continuing education and ethics for planning officials on September 30th at 6 PM in these very chambers. And if you are interested in attending, please let one of us know, and we will add you to the list. Yes, sir.
Is this one of the classes that has to be attended once a year, or every other year, or something like that?
Well, they are calling it continuing ed, so I would say, if it's something that you can make yourself available for, ideally, it's, I'm still getting up to speed on what their requirements are. Obviously, we were doing a lot of this, with the city, and keeping people's, records, as far as attendance and what they needed. But as this is continuing ed and not, not what I understand is, for those folks that are first time on, say, a planning commission or a zoning board of appeals, then I think it's helpful. I don't know that it's mandatory. I'll find that out for you.
If it is mandatory, if you could email us and let us know that there's a mandatory participation either at this or at some future meeting, and then if so, let us know what other meetings might be available before the end of the year, if that is a mandatory requirement.
Yes, I will do that.
I do have one question. What is the expected length of the training?
They're predicting 90 minutes.
Any other staff comments?
No, sir.
All right. Next item is a discussion and potential recommendation to county council regarding necessary amendments to the Oconee County Code of Ordinances, including chapter 26, 32, and 38 in relation to subdivision regulations, including land development standards and definitions and designations of subdivisions and types thereof, standards applicable to roads, driveways, and other matters materially related thereto. We've got public comments. first. Don't let me forget those. Mr. Nix, I want to say thanks to the subcommittee for again, doing such an effort on bringing this forward and really breaking it down for the public, just so everybody knows. One of the things that we've been trying to do this year, and actually in the past as well, our community, our county is exploding with development. We're seeing that happen, but it's not small development anymore or localized development. It's what I call the big money development coming out of Texas, coming out of Florida, coming out of other places. And with those big money developers, it also comes with big deep pockets with attorneys. And one of the things that we've noticed is that we've got conflicts in definitions, the conflicts in conceptual of what should take place between some of our chapters. And so, in talking with various developers, they look at this and go, this would be easy in the court system to just show you gave this guy one thing and then you used a different set of rules for somebody over here, so we're gonna do this. So what we're trying to do is clean some of those things up, put them in the right places, make sure that we have a good foundation that's a legally supported foundation without the conflicts and definitions and conflicts in the way things can be managed. So that we can then, in the future, build from that as needed. So that's all I have to start this off. And so I'd like to bring up the public, starting with Mr. Jim Codner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Jim Codner. I live down in the Bonnyland area, and I've lived in the area for about 26 years now. I guess I understand what you're saying about having a really firm, consistent foundation. I think that's great. That's really needed. My concern is overall is that you've taken out several key requirements that were in the existing standards and have been removed. And that kind of thing going on, I would hope you'd consider having a good public hearing before you send this on to council. Have a public hearing so that people have a chance to comment on some of these changes. I'll just give you a couple of examples. A minor one. You went to some effort to try and define yard and what yard means. And at one point here you say, you talk about minimum yard area shall be, and I can't read the blue here. Anyway, shall be, except as expressly permitted by the BZA. I would strike that reference to the BZA. The BZA has the ability to review many standards as they apply to the public and to reconcile issues between the public and the ordinances to try and give relief to an individual property owner where it's appropriate. This would be one, I guess. I'm not sure where we even talk about minimum required yard area, but if there's a required yard area, the BZA could be consulted to try and remedy any issues there. And this is just redundant. The reason I say that is I was on the BZA for a couple of years, and if you see a reference like this, it'd be confusing. I don't think the BZA has any way to take this and do anything. So just a piece of input on that. Other areas of concern, in several places in here, the existing standards call for the county engineer to pass on particular issues, particular plans or issues. And you've added the language county engineer or owner's engineer, developer's engineer. That's kind of letting the I don't know if the words are, but there's engineers and then there's engineers. And I'd sure think it would be appropriate to at least have a good discussion around, should we abdicate the county engineer's responsibility in favor of the builder's responsibility, builder's engineer responsibility. It doesn't actually have to be, to me, it wouldn't have to be the county engineer. It could be the county could have a panel of engineers that they have vetted and understand the county's point of view and actually pass on whatever the proposed development issue is. Did I make myself clear there? One thing I see here is under septic systems, we've stricken the requirement for developer to demonstrate that the proposed development will not adversely affect current septic systems or current sewage systems. We've just taken that out, and that seems like a reasonable requirement to have. There's a provision here around low-lying lands along water courses, subject to flooding. This is in the existing standards, subject to flooding. You need to not make any development work in there unless it's planned with sidewalks and grasslands or whatever. And just taking that out. And to me, that whole provision makes sense to have in there. And a couple of provisions on, here is, where a public water main is within 1,000 feet of a subdivision boundary, the developer shall connect thereto and install adequate central water facilities. And you've taken that out. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's tied up in your concern around private developments, I'm not sure. But if you got public water available, it sure seems to me you ought to tap into that. The same goes for sewer systems. If you got a sewer system that's available, developer ought to tie into that as opposed to trying to do his own thing. Those are just a few of the concerns I have. And I guess, to repeat myself, I think it'd be really good for you to have a public comment session, what's it called? Chance for the public to come in and make comments such as I've just made, to just give you a flavor of what the public's really thinking.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your help.
All right, Mr. Tom Markovich.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Tom Markovich. I want to say, first off, that I think that what the subcommittee has done is just an incredible piece of work. They've made some really good recommendations in my mind to make this a better document, and I appreciate the work that they've put into it. There was a couple things that did come to mind as I was glancing through this thing today. One of the things that kind of strikes out at me is that we know and understand the primary purpose of the Planning Commission and the whole Comprehensive Planning Act is to act on behalf of the public. Everything in the state law, everything that we do makes mention of the public. Nowhere in this document we talk about public roads, we talk about public education, we talk about public open spaces. We do not define public at all. That seems to be an issue. I think public should be defined. And we know what it is but the reason I bring that up is because we also talk about community. Now, several places where we've talked about it is when we talk about the needed public open spaces or community open spaces. Now, I know what's being referred to there, but nowhere in this document do we define what community is. Community could be something very small. It could be the entire county. We need to, in my mind, that we should define that. Something else that I came across, give me a second, is, Well, there's a section that talks about non-residential subdivisions. And there was a section added in there about consideration of lot density for non-residential subdivisions. And I was a little bit perplexed as to what that meant, because in the zoning documents, we spell out for the various zoning, for, highway commercial and community commercial, we have density mechanisms in there, and so I was puzzled by this reference, and so that was just something I wanted to mention. Those are really the only particular things that I came up with, and because I think everything else that I was looking at, I really like. I think we made very good improvements, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, going through this document, we had two different documents. One that was marked up, and then one that was, looked more like a finished or completed copy with just, red lettering or orange lettering on my printer, that seemed to be more of a finished document. I've got questions going through, but Mr. Haney, do you want to kind of lead off in the way that you see this progressing as a meeting?
Sure. So, as we all, or most of us here know, what we was trying to do was go through and relocate everything that dealt with private and public roadways, drives, and driveways to chapter 26. Clean up the subdivision ordinance and move the items that belong in the zoning portion of the ordinance over to the zoning. In that, to answer a concern Mr. Markovich brought up, that is strictly a comment about us striking out item 4, that it should be governed by the zoning document. So really, that should go away before it moves forward. With doing that, I think the best thing for us to do is just move through this page by page.
Okay.
That way we can go through each change. On the first page, section 32, 211.
Mickey, we're gonna go through the marked up version.
You can use whichever version you want to use. We're gonna look through the final draft, but I'd recommend you reference the version with the highlights in it to understand what was added and what was taken out.
We won't know what's taken out
In the,
in the.
I'm
first
kind of
one.
looking at them side by side.
yeah, that's what I've done, is put
It's separated the
stacks.
two and made two stacks.
All right. So the first thing is we removed the regulation contained within this article for construction and maintenance of roads. All that's going over to 26.
That was under the, and this is, for a lot of this is definition, that's going under jurisdiction is coming out of there and moving over.
Over 26. So I make a motion to move section 32, 211C, the highlighted portion that was removed.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
I recommend that we go through all the changes.
First,
Don't make motions on each one. Go through all the changes and then we can come back and discuss
okay.
if anybody wants amendments.
All
We
right.
can make those motions. Or they can make them as we go.
I know it got pretty cumbersome the last time we went through the whole document and then came back trying to make motions. But I'm,
Sometimes it takes people a little bit to absorb
okay,
as we go through. Let them absorb it and then we'll come back if they got issues with it.
And it may be too, rather than saying there were, from my standpoint, I have read this as this needs to come out of this location, but I have not read the sentence structure to determine if it should go in the next location as
Okay.
it's written. So it may be that that these be a motion made to be, these are being pulled out and removed to put into 26, but we create a document then that shows what those things are and where they would propose to go.
Right.
So that
Because
we
we're-
could-
I didn't mean to cut you off.
so that we can just make sure that we don't take an incorrect sentence and automatically plug it in without really being able to review it over there. So when we make a motion to move it to 26, we're moving it to 26 and then discussing 26.
Correct, and I thought we was under the understanding that 26 was our next
Yes, yep.
venture.
I would think so, yes.
So, how do you,
Just for clarity as to how the process is gonna happen, it's gonna stay in 32 until we've discussed 26, and then it's placed in 26, and they'll both be published simultaneously, so that there's no gap in coverage.
that was the original motion made 4 meetings ago?
I think so, that it was all gonna be presented to council at one time with those
Okay,
documents.
I may have missed that, or just didn't recall.
So how would y'all like to proceed?
I think you,
I do
Mickey.
it as we go. to
As
be
we go?
honest. Yeah,
It's cleaner, right?
I think so.
So right now, we have a,
So you're making a motion to take the stuff in yellow, pull that out of here to be plugged into 26.
dealing with 32 to 11C.
So when is discussion on that, before or after the motion?
After the motion.
I'll second that emotion. I'll second it, and now we have discussion.
My comment on that is, I get that you want 26 to be the concentration of roads, however, you have no mention of roads, the regulations, this whole sentence, and the structure of public or private roads in the jurisdiction. Pickens has it in their land development, so does Anderson, so does Greenville and Spartanburg. So I feel like we're missing out. If you really insist on removing it, then have a reference to where somebody can find it. Refer to chapter 26 for regulations contained for the construction and maintenance of roads, blah, 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 blah. But just to remove it, because you can't have land development without roads. So you need some definition of, some way to construct, some guidance for developers, and if you don't want it here, then refer to them where they can find that information.
That's good input. So you want to amend this motion to,
I would amend to remove it, I like this sentence here, regulations that apply to the construction and maintenance of roads, appurtenances, I don't know if I said it right, drainage structure, public, private, that whole sentence, just say, can be found in chapter 26. You could do it that way. But just to remove it and say nothing is gonna cause a lot of problems, I think. Certainly a lot of phone calls to planning.
So I have no opposition to it being there. Do know that a developer has to look at all of these documents. They can't just say, I want to follow 32. They have to follow 26. They have to follow 38. So they don't get to say, ooh, I'm just going to look at 32 and do whatever's on 32. They have to follow all of those
That's
development
great,
standards.
but it doesn't hurt to have a double check and have it so plain as the nose on your face, in case somebody says, well, I didn't know. Well, it's here, and it's here. We have a whole chapter called roads, and it's also in our land development. We're referring you to that to talk about roads.
Gotcha.
That's all.
And again, I don't mind.
Double
It's
check.
just that they can't not know because it's,
You think. Well, I don't
well,
know.
no, I mean,
you-
they can't not know because they can't
You would
get
hope.
approved through the.
It doesn't hurt to put that in there.
Okay. Are we making a motion then to address it that way?
I would make a motion to amend this paragraph to say, in whatever the group thinks, either please refer to all regulations and maintenance information on roads, public or private, to chapter 26, or take off this one sentence that's kind of in the middle, and then say, please refer to chapter 26, however you want to say it.
So regulations can be on public construction and maintenance.
So if I could just keep up, we have a motion, and I guess this would be an amendment, or a friendly amendment to that motion, to which Mr.
There would
King
be-
would then agree, and I think we need to.
Yeah, I think
make
we're trying to
sure we
get
got
the-
a second.
I think we're trying to get the verbiage worked out right now.
Yes, sir.
Regulations contained within this article that apply to the construction and maintenance of roads, that shall apply to all public and private roads, drives and driveways in the unincorporated areas of the county. Can be found in chapter 26. I'm gonna just make it short and sweet, so.
Reference chapter 26.
I don't know that that sentence is actually true anymore, though.
Right, because there's no road callouts in this article anymore. Can we postpone this until after we go through the rest of the discussion?
So we'll make a note of this. I'd like to find out, I know that Mr. Helbig was in the meetings, as to kind of input there, or maybe a David Root. As I'm reading it, I don't know that this is a correct sentence any longer.
Okay, so how about this? I amend my motion to say 32-211C, just add, refer to chapter, like a little asterisk, make a reference to chapter 26.
To road
Yeah,
regulations?
just.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
You seconding that?
I second that.
That amendment? Do we vote on it? I'm lost here. I need a,
It's a friendly amendment.
so does that mean that you're amending then? Your original amendment?
I'm accepting that amendment, and that is to reference chapter 26. How did you word that?
Make a reference to refer to chapter 26, like a little asterisk. Refer, for more information on roads.
On roads,
Road construction and maintenance.
refer to chapter 26. That's being amended to your motion. The motion is on the table that we're removing everything that's in yellow there and adding the verbiage that was just stated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All right.
Can I just, before we move forward, I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. I know that on here it's saying that to send this to county council, this does need to go to root before it goes to county council. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that everybody, all right.
Thank you, Lisa. And by the way, thank you, gentlemen, for your work on the committee.
Thank you.
Next step.
All right, so let's move, are you okay when we continue? So section 32-211 D 2. We did some housekeeping there. I think that's the correct usage of the word. If not, let me know. The other thing is we added in required, and easements or right-of-way is added in.
I did have a quick question on that. I don't understand the sentence with it saying timely provisions of the required streets. Is that saying any required streets or streets as may be required?
As may be required.
Okay.
Of streets as required.
So you may add timely provision of required streets, utilities, and other facilities or services as may be required to new land developments?
Yes. Sure, tell me provision.
Only because it's not just streets, it's also utilities and other facilities, and they may or may not be required, so to say simply required. So I would read it to ensure timely provision of required streets, utilities, and other facilities or services as may be required, or I actually take out the first required, provisions of streets, utilities, and other facilities and services as may be required to new land developments.
Is that a motion? Do you have to make a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion that we move the word required down to past services and say as may be required. To
I'll
new land
second that.
developments. Any discussion on that? Did you all get what we were trying to do to that sentence? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
us to put in the correct verbiage. Item 4, to ensure this provision for open spaces, easements, right-of-ways, and public building sites, including any dedicated or reserved of land for recreational, educational, transportation, or other purposes, if needed / required in and or for new developments as determined by the zoning or state or local government regulations.
I thought that was really good. I like
We
that.
removed the needed public, and the reason why is this ordinance deals with both public and private land use.
Make a motion, accept. Accept as is.
I'll second that. Mr. Helbig, you've gone through this as well. You didn't see any conflicts in making that change with the committee? And I only address you because you were kind of playing devil's advocate or the spotter there as far as the government position.
And to that, I can say that I've really been even just trying to, get up to speed with what the original code says. You've been, as a group, been dealing with it a lot longer than I have, and so I'm gonna be looking for correctness. But I don't know if I was much of a devil's advocate when we were in our meeting.
Well, we've kind of made
Try to be,
we've made a
providing-
footnote, so Mr. Root, as he reviews all of this, but I put a note that I thought that this was well-written. So, any other discussion on this item? All those in favor of this change, say aye. Unanimous?
5, that was just cleaning up the verbiage. Building footprint, so we're moving down to section 32-212 definitions. Building footprints, the sentence ended with courts. We assumed that was courtyards.
Right.
So a motion is change it to courtyards, which is
I'll second that. I think that's probably what that was intended to say. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
with that, I think, Mr. Markovich had a, good idea in defining what community is and what public is. And while we're in definitions, I think it's something we need to explore.
Do we want to make a motion to put the word community in here and then ask Mr. Root to bring something to us?
I make a motion to put community in and define a definition for public.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Me.
All those in favor of Mr. Root reviewing, adding that in and bringing us a definition? Is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
All right, so we're still under definitions, crosswalks.
And we've just gone through community, just as you know, not public yet. You were,
I thought the motion was for both.
The motion was for both.
was the motion for both? Okay, in the community and in public. Okay,
Yes.
sorry, that's,
Even though we're not.
that works.
Yeah, even though we're
Even
not
there
there.
yet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Getting some double duty on motions.
good job.
Crosswalks, I could not find anywhere we're required a minimum 10-foot in subdivisions. So I thought that should be more left up to the developer's discretion. So it may meet the aesthetics that they're going for in their subdivisions, especially the private subdivisions. So we removed that 10-foot or more requirement, and we also removed the word public because it is dealing with both public and private properties.
I did look through that, and maybe somebody could be more specific. I could not find anywhere at any level where there was a required crosswalk
I found that the
distance.
Federal Highway Administration says minimum width is 6 feet. But I don't know if that applies to a private.
And you see near a stadium, it's 30 feet wide, and you see near
Right, it all
some
depends, I think, the volume
of what's being developed and what's going on. So I like the removal of that 10-foot requirement.
So my motion is to remove out the 10-foot requirement and to remove public and replace it with pedestrian.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, say aye.
The next is a housekeeping. It deals with DHEC's name change.
Yeah, that's good.
So throughout this article, it has been changed. Unfortunately, I'm on the wrong page. Ed, what did we change? What's the?
South Carolina Department, SCDH,
SCDES.
I see it on the,
SCDEHE?
No, so it was, South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, which was DHEC. It is now South Carolina Department of Environmental Services, which is SCDES.
I see it on our blue copy. I don't see it on our
It
finished
is, you
copy.
got to
Is
get
it?
down to the S's and definitions.
Oh. It's under SC now?
Yes, sir.
I see what you're saying.
All right, so that was removed out. I guess, Ed, we need to make a motion for that, or it's more just, let's make a motion just to clean everything
Might
up.
be easier to make a motion for the whole document instead of just
Yes.
this one, yeah.
So this is a motion to do a renaming for what is currently DHEC in this document to SCDES, which means South Carolina Department of Environmental Services.
Second.
And that will change throughout the documents and the ordinances all the way across the board. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
All right, the next item we're dealing with is the definition of dwelling. Dwelling means a building or a portion of buildings arranged or designed to provide living quarters for one or more families, where each dwelling unit is provided with a separate kitchen and bathroom facility. That unit is added in. And if you're wondering what a dwelling unit is, the definition is below item 4.
So do you need to make a motion on that since it is
Yes.
an addition rather than a housekeeping issue?
Yes.
I'll second that. Any discussion on adding the word unit there? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right, so now we get into the definitions of single dwelling, family dwelling. I added in residential lot on that definition, 1, 2, and 3. And the reason why is because in this document, you have residential lots, and then you have non-residential lots. That's the only type of lots that's mentioned in this document.
So it wouldn't make sense for single-family dwelling to go in non-residential, commercial, or
Correct.
industrial space. I think that's a really good addition.
And
So do you want to make a motion on all
so
three
I'll
of
make
those?
a motion for adding residential lot to item 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
Dwelling unit, we did some housekeeping, put a comma after eating. We also struck out rooms. So it did read, the dwelling unit means one or more rooms connected together and constructed or constituting a separate independent housekeeping establishment with the provision of cooking, eating, sleeping, and physically is set apart from any other. They did have rooms or dwelling units in the same structure. As we've seen the uptick in barn dominiums and things like that, this kind of created an issue there. So we removed rooms and just went with dwelling units, which is,
That,
I know it's a definition of itself.
yeah, that looks to be a change that's not in there, so do we need to make a motion then to accept that? Or do we need to make just a total motion then at the end, just documenting all these changes are approved as changed? So we don't need to make a motion on that one then?
No, we're striking out rooms
Rooms
or. So I
Mhm.
make a motion to strike out rooms or to remove it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Unanimous?
Easement, on private roadways, mean the easement grant access, for all roadway construction and maintenance. I removed utility and the reason I done that is because of the takings clause. You cannot require a private citizen to give property to another private citizen for, utilities, cable, things like that. It's a negotiation between the two.
That's why you mentioned the Supreme Court case.
Yes.
And I was like, where does this apply? So, okay, good. All right.
Yes, that's where it comes from.
Okay. Make a motion, accept.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
And any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Unanimous?
Aye.
So now we're on to definitions of minor subdivisions. We removed minor subdivision means a minor subdivision is.
Can I stop you real
Yeah.
quick? Because I had a notation here. I was looking at the original, going up above to number 4, lot width. I was looking at the 2024 original stuff and looking at this, and that second sentence, front building line intersects. It used to say front building setback line intersects. I don't remember when that changed. But should it not say, it says front building line? And I know that's is it the building line or is it the setback? And I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Helbig.
And I can tell you off the top of my head, I don't either, but I will put a note in there and see what we can do to correct
I
that.
just noticed that it had been taken out after 2024, and I don't remember discussing it, and I don't remember why, if it was. And Can we ask Mr. Markovich, he may have a memory, is that okay for discussion purposes, real quick?
Make a motion, Markovich, speaks
I'll-
on this matter.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye. If you'll be real brief.
Just very quickly, that goes back to a change that y'all made in the zoning document that had to do with the lots. And you had setback line and you had the building line, and it had to do because you had, sometimes you'd have a long distance line, it'd be a skewed line.
Was that
And so
is
that
that when we changed the odd-shaped lots and
Exactly.
flag lots?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
flag lots, that's
Okay,
where it came
all right.
up.
Just
That's
I
when
couldn't
it
remember
got
where that
changed.
disappeared, and so it was just a question I had. Thank you. I've slept since then, and so I don't remember. All right, that was my only question. Sorry. Go
Good
ahead and
memory.
go with minor subdivision.
Yeah, that's a good memory.
So no change.
No change with regard to 4.
Okay.
So, back to minor subdivisions, we removed a minor subdivision is from that definition. So I make a motion for that removal.
Second. It's editorial.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
We added in residential lots again, just so that the verbiage flowed throughout this document, that we're dealing with residential lots. And that falls into the road dimensions also, that will be in chapter 26. We had attempted, and this in red on y'all's document actually needs, I make a motion, I did not catch this.
To me, it was, we've had everything in red were additions, but this was actually a deletion.
Well, actually, in our discussion, we had added it in to be added, but then Dave Nix had made a motion, let's just reserve the definition further on down in the document. And let me get there. So if you, we'll go to section 32-213, item G. Yes, so we actually, I make a motion to remove the definition of mid-size subdivision and major subdivision, and put it just as mid-size is reserved below G, and major subdivision reserved below mid-size.
And what does that mean, reserved?
For future reference, we can use and add the definition of Mr. Nix.
So the discussion on that, where it went was, we don't use mid-size or major subdivisions throughout the regulations. And so I was asking, why have a definition if you're not gonna use it? And I was pushing just to delete it, and Mickey, was saying, what if we use it in the future? And so our compromise was put it in there, but just have it reserved for if we use it in other locations as we go through and make amendments.
And so we're pulling out the words mid-size and major, and we're sticking them in under G?
Well, technically, they never existed in this formal document
Okay.
under the
So
definition.
you're
Mickey
creating
wanted
new
to add them
definitions,
in, and I,
Basically. Yes,
I have
why?
a question.
Because right now it's minor up to 10, and then 11 plus is major. But you've broken up the 11 plus into a medium and a major.
Well, there, actually, it doesn't call out major. It's just anything above 10 is.
Okay, well,
And it kind of, my thought process on this was, if you read under the, chapter 26, when it goes over 100 lots, they're wanting you to, have another means of ingress and egress to the road. So I was thinking, all right, well, then 10, because 10 falls under the minor subdivision, 100 would fall under a mid-size, and anything over 100 would be a major. So it kind of flows throughout all the documents of being able to determine at a glance what you're dealing with. But Dave Nix, Mr. Nix did have a valid point. If you're not gonna use it, why put it in there? So with that, from getting a spam call. With that, we had said, well, let's move it down under minor, because we didn't understand what the purpose was for having minor called out. And, 32-213.
Comment.
Yes.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna refer to you guys over there. There's checklists when you're doing certain subdivisions. So a minor might have a checklist of what's required, and then anything over 11 houses plus has its own checklist. How many pages in a minor subdivision checklist? One. So anything 11 plus, and we'll call it major, how long is that document?
It's in the back of this document.
The whole subdivision checklist?
It
It's
gives-
30 pages? 30?
Three, sorry.
Three. Oh, it's only three. That's different. So if you're I guess if you're calling out mid and major, looking at this, I go, well, what's the difference between those two? Are they gonna have different requirements on their checklist? Mid and major gonna be different, or is it just we just gonna keep 11 plus as one blanket?
Hey, Mickey, do you recall when we made the amendment for lot sizes in subdivisions, what amount of residences in that subdivision was the demarcation line for that?
You talking about in the, control freak? 10,
Okay.
yes.
Can I
Hi.
correct?
Tagging on to what,
Yeah.
It's 6, it's not 3. It's 6 pages.
So it's a one-page checklist versus a 6-page checklist, so a mid could have less, or?
So if I'm kind of understanding, right, so mid would be 11 to 100, and then the major would be 100 plus.
Right,
Or,
so-
sorry,
101.
101 plus, right? So, I mean, the checklist currently, it's just a major checklist, so, unless there are other, requirements for the major or the mid-size, like, is there going to be, my question would be like, is there going to be a difference in the two checklists? Is it going to be the same checklist, which, until a new checklist and new requirements are put into place, that would be what it is? Does that make sense?
Yes, and
Okay.
right now, we're discussing a definition that really shouldn't be in here. The only thing we were putting in here, or my motion is to put in here, is underneath minor subdivision where it's reserved, put in those other two categories. So that later on, as we build the road document and other documents, we can reference back to this. And then maybe pick them up that time, or just leave them out.
so that's kind of what I'm asking, is there anything in 32 that puts additional requirements on 11 to 100 and then 101 above
No, the only additional requirements
Or any
comes from
requirements in
26.
that distinction, in 26,
In
right?
26,
So
dealing with the
26
100 lots.
Are we gonna put those definitions in 26 and
Well, that's something we gotta discuss. So I'll tell you what, I make a motion that we remove mid-size subdivisions and major subdivisions from this document.
Second.
Was that the end of that sentence?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know and move them to or anything like that, so, and remove them from there.
And if we need them in further discussion, we'll put them in.
Second.
All those in favor of removing these two items signify by saying aye.
All right. Just housekeeping, on natural vegetation.
Parking, looks like
Parking off-street. So we added in roadway. further down in this document, we have a definition of roadway. Roadway is different than right-of-way. So roadway is basically the area of the road that the vehicle traffic travels on. It's excluding of the berm. So that was the change to this document.
Y'all want some context of our discussion on that?
That would be nice.
Okay, so our argument was with each other. I don't know how to, I really need something to draw with. So you got the roadway. The roadway is the portion of the road that you drive on, it's the paved portion. Then you've got the right-of-ways on either side, or the
Clear zone.
clear zone on either side. Okay, and so our argument was when they're discussing these parking regulations, where are you allowed to put a car? And if you only, the parking piece means an area adequate for parking automobile, room for safely open doors on both sides, off the roadway. So if you say off the roadway, that means off of the paved area. Whereas off of the street, we didn't know what that meant, because street was not defined with respect to right-of-way, clear zone, et cetera.
Well, if you go back to the definition of street, it included the road in its entirety.
Right, so,
And we were thinking about two things. One is, if you go down through Walhalla, they got parking right off the roadway at angles. The vehicles don't travel down through the white lines where the vehicles are parking. They travel on the roadway, but the vehicles are actually parking still within the right-of-way. But they're not in the roadway, and that's why we brought up that definition. I also think this definition plays an important role going forward in this county as, and this is just my opinion, some people may agree with me or not, but I don't think at no time, with exception of emergencies, should vehicles block the roadway and use the roadway for parking, because that hinders other residents from being able to get to their homes or get out of their homes. I was looking at this definition, maybe using it in that aspect later on. But that's for another day and another discussion. But that's what the whole roundup of my thought process behind roadway and off-street parking. Because off-street parking, under the definition of street, included the entirety of the road.
We had a motion on this to approve this, or did we not?
Not yet.
Not yet. So my motion is to, add in
The word way?
way on the end of the road for the off-street parking.
I'll second that. Any additional discussion? Then all those in favor, say aye.
Unanimous?
Thanks for providing clarity on that.
Okay. So everything below, I guess this is what we removed out again, right? Public roads.
On your sketch plan after potable water, it looks like there was a removing of something to roads and bridges side in 26.
Okay, yes.
We redefined that.
Yes, and I redefined, potable water. I pulled this definition out of what's now South Carolina Department of Environmental Services. The old definition read,
problem was it didn't include well water.
Right. It's not
Right.
to a company or utility, yeah, I see that.
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
so it includes private wells.
good. Make a motion, accept.
Second.
All those in favor of the new definition of potable water signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
So this is where the definition of roadway comes in. We do need to make a clerical,
Is that on the word highway?
no, it's on roadway. It's South Carolina Code 56-5-460. I use their definition for roadway. A portion of their definition,
Did you say 460 or 416?
460.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add this definition in. Actually, we did not vote on possible, yeah, we did.
We did.
Yeah. I would like to add this definition into this document.
Okay. Make a motion to accept?
I'll second. I did have a question on it, though. It says roadway means that portion of a highway improved. Does it need to say highway or road or highway, or? It just seemed weird that it just said highway.
That's the way their definition.
And does that account for all of their roads at a state level?
Can you pull up 56-5?
Wait a minute, before we do that, Mickey, let's back up.
Okay.
Let's go look at page 5 of 23 of the markup. Starting with move to chapter 26 or in red. Roads and
Yes.
bridges, you got private driveway, private drive, private road. We need to make a motion and all that stuff down, public road, right of way, all that stuff. We need to make a motion that we're moving that to chapter 26 before we get down to roadway, I
the-
think.
Oh, that's what's
Oh,
going
yeah,
on in
that's
chapter.
with all the public road right-of-ways and the arterial roads and collector roads and major roads.
Yes.
It's not shown in the new document because it's not there.
It's at the very end of the new document.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and deal with that motion, though. I think that
Okay, so I make a motion to move all items in the markup document.
and we're talking about the blue line document,
Yes.
as I referred to it.
Into chapter 26, waiting for us to discuss and insert it correctly.
Yes, everything down to that red horizontal line that you see.
Yes. So that's moving everything from starting with private drive all the way down to
Private
the
drive way.
arterial roads, collector roads, all the way down to minor local and service roads.
That's
So
correct.
above sanitary sewer, correct?
Yes, above sanitary sewer, all that's being proposed to be moved to 26. Roads and bridges. Did somebody make a motion for that?
I did.
And did that-
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor of that move, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
With that being said, I thought about two other items that probably should be moved to chapter 26. And we need to come up with a definition of street.
You need a definition to clear it.
I looked up the definition of street, and it talked about municipality. That it was, I said, street would be a road surface in a municipality, city, or town. As opposed to a road, you think of the word street, it doesn't seem to apply to a farm road as much as it would apply to some city section or town section, or, again, a municipality. That was how the Google defined it anyway.
So I-
That's an appropriate,
I looked it up as well. I used AI because I was playing with it. But it defines street as the roadway, any sidewalks, and then easement. So it seemed to include way more than we generally consider as a street.
Right. So both of these documents does not have the original definition of street in it. The original definition of street, I don't know how it got deleted out, but I think it stated C public road. Right. And that's the reason we needed to redefine the definition of street. So instead of trying to do that here tonight, it really belongs over in chapter 26. I make a motion to move the definition of street over into chapter 26.
Second.
and then the discussion would be, and have Mr. Root define it.
Correct.
So So while we're on that discussion, if you guys look back on what we moved into chapter 26 under public road,
Yes, sir.
public road right-of-way width, that's what you're talking about, Joe, is all the,
Yeah, it's included there.
but it says see public road, the public road only defines the length, it doesn't define the widths, which that's the reason we were struggling with the whole definition of street.
Well, and I did say
If
that.
it says see public road, well, you're still not defining the width.
And because you're dealing with private roads, and street is used in this document for dealing with
Yeah.
private roads, it creates,
It's problematic.
yes,
So we'll have to deal with that in chapter 26.
right.
We'll move it there anyway.
So your motion was to do it, would you amend that motion to ask us to provide a definition, or are we gonna provide a definition once we get there?
I think we really need to get there and figure out what a street
What
is.
it's gonna be? Okay, so we're just gonna move it right now. That's the
Let's-
motion.
The motion is to move street into 26 for further discussion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, unless there's additional discussion, signify by saying aye.
Now, the same thing with roadway. I make a motion to move it, chapter 26.
Is roadway not used in chapter 32? I thought
Both
it was.
street and roadway is used in chapter 32, but we want it to be referenced from 26, so if it's ever changed.
So I thought we discussed that anytime that, well, I know we really want to centralize all the definitions eventually, but
Correct.
anytime we use the terminology within that chapter, we need to define it within that chapter.
Only if it's not defined in a superior chapter.
Superior.
What's the superior chapter?
A
Define
controlling
superior.
chapter, controlling document. So, the road and bridges document will be the controlling document. So the definition should be in that document. If you want to know what roads means when you're dealing with the subdivision document or the zoning document, you should go to the controlling document, which will be the roads and bridge document.
I'm not gonna fight you on that right now.
And I don't think I would agree. If you're reading this and it says, make sure your road is white with blue lettering, then, or make sure your road meets all standards, and when you go to roads to see what those standards are.
Correct. And
So I don't think it necessarily needs to be defined as here, it would be defined in the area that it's
But could you put a reference, please refer to definition in chapter 26?
My concern about doing all of that is now, well, you didn't reference these other 17 things
Well,
that
the
should
other ones
reference
didn't deal
somewhere
with
else.
roads, these two specifically are.
But some of them deal with zoning, and so now you're saying, oh, well, you didn't go reference 38.
I think that's a good idea too. We haven't gotten there yet.
Then I'm
I think the point is that I really think that, again, anybody who's doing it has to follow all of it as one big piece. They're not following just one portion or another portion,
Make a motion.
is my concern about it. What's that?
I'm sorry, my bad.
Go.
I'm just gonna ask if we could take 5.
yes,
And I assume that we're gonna try to get through the whole document.
I'll second the take 5. It is, what time is it now?
7:18.
7:18, let's meet back at 7:25. All those in favor of that change, signify by saying aye. gavel to say we're back in session here. All right, where did we leave off, Mr. Haney?
We left off on roadway being moved over to,
26.
26 for further discussion.
Okay,
I think that motion passed.
I have a motion, I don't have a second.
Okay.
Second.
any additional discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
Then this is where you added the DES,
Yes, we've already voted.
and we voted for that.
Water course, storm sewer.
The next thing says setback, and I know you didn't make any changes there, but I had a question on that. The definition of setback, minimum distance required between every structure and the lot line of the lot on which it's located. We had made a change regarding retaining walls and things like that that could go outside of that setback. Is this definition now in conflict with previous stuff? And I'm kind of directing that to staff.
Well, I know you're talking about every structure, and as we said, there has been a correction to that to allow for
Retaining walls and fences,
other-
which to me would be structure. It should, and I didn't know if it should say vertical structure or define the word structure or something. I think that we may need to deal with that a little bit since we've made that change with retaining walls. Or maybe the definition is still applicable and we just have a section that says retaining walls can go outside the quote setback.
Okay. Nope, you go,
Oh.
you're right, nope, you're right.
I was gonna say, which I think is what you did, and we simply, continue on that path.
Okay, it was just something that hit my mind that I made a note to say, remember to ask about this. So if we've answered that, I'm good for Mr. Haney to keep going.
Well, let's
So
discuss.
do we need to change the definition here?
I think we've got I'm sorry.
I was thinking they were saying that it was appropriate.
Yeah, so in, is it 26? I think it's, no, it's not 26.
So this was
So when
essentially
you
missed.
when you added, retaining walls to the zoning, yes, you're right, correct, it's chapter 38. So that was in, the portion stating that it could be within the setback. So there are certain things that can and cannot be in a setback, right? So, retaining walls are one. You can have 24 inches of an eave inside of the setback. You can have heating and cooling units inside a setback. There's so much, distance of stairs that can be within a setback, so in that
So
portion
the
of it-
definition is still applicable, there's no conflict there, it just says you're referencing this.
Well,
Okay,
actually,
good.
to me, there is some type of conflict because it's the required minimum distance between every structure. There may not be a structure there. It might be just the buildable line. And I think you and I in the past have talked about this. A setback, a minimum setback, is truly the distance between the non-buildable area and the
In the
buildable
buildable
area.
area, yes.
It's not between the structure, the placement of the structure, because the structure could be, 100 foot inside of the buildable area.
Yeah, you're right, a setback is not a structure. It's not related to the structure, it's related to the potential for the structure. I mean, so,
Is this a moot question? Do you have any fix it up?
I wonder how the definition is in zoning, because it really, this is probably one of those definitions that need to go over to
So
zoning.
should a setback be defined as the minimum distance between the buildable area and the lot lines?
Yes,
But it's not here.
it's not here. I think that Ms. Spicer's correct, that Mr. Root needs to look at that. I'd like to make a motion that as a separate item, that Mr. Root look at the word setback, as it relates within our chapters.
So to kind of add to that, I don't know if this means anything to you, but like in our office, we're gonna talk about your property lines and setbacks, right? your buildable area, your build line, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you've had any experience with this, but that's not something that I am like notating on a daily basis, right? So I don't know if that makes a difference in.
So let me ask you this, from your perspective, if I came in and you said you can build, your setbacks are 10 feet off the property line, we'll use the example based on whatever zoning.
Sure.
Your setback is 10 feet off the property line. Beyond that point, you can go vertical with structures. Is that the way you would do it?
Yes.
Here, it's saying that the setback isn't 10 feet, it's a distance to the structure.
No, it
Yeah,
says
I see
the
what you're
minimum
saying, yeah.
distance
So
to the
in
structure.
other,
So it's measuring from the structure to to the property line versus the property line to the structure.
The structure itself is not applicable.
correct, and it may cause some misinterpretations in other ordinances as they're written if we do not correct it.
At least I think that I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Root look at this word setback as it's currently written in 32,
I think it's great.
with possible change to the definition.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
All right.
So what was 32?
That was the word setback.
Definition.
All right, Mr. Haney.
All right, so we had, the next change is water course. I cannot remember the original wording of that.
Source.
Yeah,
Water source, right.
yeah, before it had said water source, so we changed it to the word course,
It's not marked.
as it should be. I make a motion that change, for that change.
And you're adding the word water course?
We're changing it from
Source to course,
source to course.
of course.
Not course to course.
Of course.
And you've seconded the motion, Ms. Spicer. Any discussion? All those in favor then signify by saying aye.
I'm sorry, I'm lost on where we got that.
We're under the word storm sewer.
Oh,
It's not marked up in the marked up one. In the marked up document, it's not notated.
all right, I
It's-
found it, okay, I'm
It
good.
would be in the finished document, under the orange lettering.
Yeah, I'm good.
Did you also signify approval? So we're unanimous.
Unanimous.
All right, Ms. Cheney.
So dealing with yard, this is dealing pretty much with the same, definition as we were with setback. Originally, the definition read, yards means a space between the principal building or buildings and the nearest lot line or road right of way as applicable, or this minimum requirement, required yard shall be unoccupied and unobstructed from the ground upwards, except as may be expressly permitted. And I think I'm missing, what was that last
I'm
part?
probably missing.
Huh?
By the BZA or from,
Expressly committed BZA, it's,
that's my edit.
Okay,
I'm sure.
what was the original?
Originally it just said except as may be expressly permitted.
Okay,
It didn't have BZA in
Yeah,
there.
it didn't
We
say
put that
by
in
whom.
there because we didn't know
Right.
what body would approve it.
yeah, what body would,
So we just stated the obvious.
right.
Does the word yard need to be in there? Is it in any official language? I mean, when I think of a yard, I think of, that's my backyard, that's where the kids play, or that's my front yard, that's where whatever. But it seems to kind of maybe deal with or then not deal with setback lines. As if it goes over setback lines. But then it says you can't build in it, which means that I can't take and put an outbuilding for my lawnmower in my backyard necessarily. Which if it was in my buildable area inside the setbacks, I can under one definition.
I don't-
Please talk, I'm asking these
I
questions.
just don't know if, I don't wanna overstep, but so, the non-buildable area, the potential problems that may come from that are somebody saying, oh, well, I can't build a retaining wall, or I can't build a fence. in the setback, they can put a fence in the setback, they can put. that's
Do you
the-
use the word yard? Do you ever say, hey, you're within the yard, there's something about the yard, it's in a survey as the yard, or anything like that?
Because
So no-
because it gets, because it's,
It seems to be a conflicting even use of defining.
that's
So
the,
I make a motion to remove
Wait a minute,
yard.
Elise had one more thing to say.
sorry,
Go ahead.
no, it's okay. So that space, right, that we're, I call it the setback, I mean, just, I say it's the setback because it's easier.
As it
for-
should be called.
I mean, you've got right-of-way setbacks and buildable area.
Yep.
Well, and property itself, which is, you're usually talking about what their property is from their property lines, then their setback to their buildable area,
And yard
doesn't
really is
necessarily
not
come
any,
into the
has
discussion.
no realistic application.
I make a motion that we remove the definition yard.
So I would maybe talk about a different word for it. Potentially, that might be a better question.
Is there a need? Because we have the word for build area, we have the word for setback, we have the word for property.
Do you have an idea, Elise, what it could be?
That was a great
If
question.
you did a word search, would it show up anywhere else in this document, or in this chapter anyway?
Yard, probably.
What do you think would be?
I don't know that it
used?
does.
What's a good substitute for it? You know?
That would be the tough question, right? I think that the information that's here for yard is important. I just don't know if yard is the best, and it may be that setback is.
Space that lies between.
I don't know, but you have the front, the rear, and the side, which you have a front, rear, and side setbacks.
Yes, and it's defining what the same verbiage is set by. Back.
Right.
So I don't think that this definition even needs to be in this document, that we should reference back to the zoning and setbacks.
Well, because this references buildable areas versus not buildable areas, and it's not really the yard that defines that, it's the setback that defines that.
Correct.
Would it be, I guess, I'm just kind of digging at your brain, but like, would you take yard out and then put this information somewhere else?
It should be
Like,
in the zone.
setback or
Should it be
something?
with setback?
That's what I'm saying.
Front setback, side setback?
It should be in the brochure of a house being for sale. Here's the backyard, and isn't it pretty, and there's the playground equipment. But I don't know that it has an application within construction.
'Cause
I think it should be in the building codes, setbacks and building codes, setbacks and zoning ordinance. So
I think we had this argument
let's move it in.
to delete it, because
Delete it.
I asked, was it in chapter 32, was yard
And
used?
if I'm not mistaken, we did a search and it was not.
If it's not used,
I
then
couldn't
it shouldn't
find
be
it.
in there.
Yep, so
I didn't do a word search, but I couldn't find it in
my motion is to remove it from this document. Because really it serves no purpose, because it's merging two things together that should not be.
Well, has anybody looked at those ordinances? Are those ordinances that are listed after side yard, are those for all the definitions, or just?
Yeah, they are.
So yard is used in basically in chapter 38 in almost every section. So every single, you'd have to change every single,
No, I'm just saying remove the definition from here. Does chapter 38 have the definition in it? Is yard used in chapter 32? That would be fine.
32, not that I'm seeing.
So now we gotta look and see if it's used in chapter 38.
So it's in 38, 34, 28.
Is it the same definition?
That's what it may not, I just literally searched yard, so it may not be.
So-
So
What
like,
is it in 32?
It's not in 32, but I'm wondering if they're using 32 definition to
rear yard setback is used in chapter 32.
rear yard setback. Okay.
it.
Minimum
Rear yard
setback.
setback, is that item 2 under yard, or is it somewhere else?
214 lot improvements. Erection of buildings observing the minimum yard setbacks from both streets without encroaching into side and rear yard setbacks established in the building line section of this, whatever the rest of it says.
You said 214.
Section 32-214, lot improvements.
I don't,
Paragraph,
what, is that A, B, C, D?
Oh, hang on one second, sorry.
I don't see it.
Under lot dimensions,
Lot dimensions.
number 1
Okay.
and number 2.
Dimension of corner lot should be large enough to allow for the right building.
What if we made this easier and just left the yard definition and deleted the last sentence? The minimum required yard shall be non-buildable area except as may be expressly permitted. Just delete that sentence.
I just don't want the yard to be something that defines a non-buildable area, so that would suffice, because again, the way it's reading now, you can't put up an outbuilding to hold the lawnmower or a chicken coop or something like that, potentially.
Is yard, do you consider yard and setback synonymous?
No, and that's the problem, is the yard can go over the setback, it can go over the build area, but it doesn't have to go over the build area.
The other thing I don't want is for, the misinterpretation of yard and them saying, well, you cannot build in this area.
I just think the definition using the word yard is a weird word, because when I visualize a yard, it's right out there, it's got the grass in it. And when you're saying you can't build in the yard,
I would maybe say leave it, let's talk to Rude about it. This is, again, this is just, whatever y'all wanna do is what we're gonna do, but
item 1 and item 2 have the word yard in them, but it's minimum setback. It really, yard is
Front setback,
irrelevant
rear
in there.
setback? You substitute setback for yard?
Well, it's already in there. It just says minimum yard setbacks. It's almost as if the word yard could be taken out. Encroaching into the yard setbacks, it's encroaching into the type of development without encroaching into the yard setback. It's plugging in a word that doesn't need to be there.
But again, it's used multiple other times all throughout the ordinance. And so where this definition is applicable to other areas, you would have to go back through the entire thing and change every single, or remove it, or whatever the case is, which, if that's what y'all wanna do,
Which
that's
is,
fine, but
That's a very good point. So my motion is to postpone this until our planning department gets back with us with where all yard is used. In those documents, how many of them have a definition of yard and what that definition is. And then we can come back and figure out what's the appropriate definition we want to apply here. My concern is, the way it's written now, it is going from a known building, and to me, it seems like it could be interpreted that the yard, you cannot build something in your yard.
Is the way I'm reading it is you can't build something in your yard
And
without
it's,
being
it's wrong.
So you've made a motion to ask them to come back with where is it in our chapters, in our ordinances, and what the definitions are within those ordinances, so that we can evaluate whether we need to send it to David Root for a new definition, or whether we needed to simply eliminate it out of those words, because clearly in 214, you could eliminate that word and not change the meaning of that sentence.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye.
unanimous?
And so that's a homework assignment for you guys to,
All right.
we were in yards, so whatever's after that, it looks like you're down to utilities.
13.
Road signs?
All that was transferred over to 26. Correct? Or was it not?
No.
No, it was not, you're right.
Utilities.
Utilities, I added public in there, because it deals with public right-of-way. And that is section 32-213D.
Make a motion to approve that addition.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
Road signs, I added on public roads in there, and also added in all other signs shall be installed as required by the South Carolina Code of Law.
Reason we added public roads is because we really don't have jurisdiction over private roads.
Correct.
Put it what they want.
A motion to approve that as written.
Second.
All those in favor with changing E as written, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
On family transfers, we wanted to make sure that family transfers were not penalized. And I asked for Mr. Root's definition on this, and his reply was, or his interpretation on this, and his reply was sometimes, I think, right? So we removed when the item in yellow, under F,
Because it's overly restrictive.
yes, because it's overly restricted. So I make a motion to remove the highlighted portion of F in the markup document.
Second.
All right, that change, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
So now we're moving on to section 32-214, lot improvements. Item F. So in item F, usable areas, all lots adjacent to floodplain, creeks, wetlands, should use natural features as lot boundaries when possible. And then it also stated lots containing areas unsuitable for usage shall not use this area in calculating minimum lot area. I removed that out because when you get into the zoning ordinance,
It's in conflict with chapter 38,
correct,
as that sentence was.
I make a motion to remove that.
I second that.
All those in favor of that change, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
G, under septic system setbacks, this was overreaching at the county level. DHEC is solely responsible for, septic systems. And so we removed out item 3.
Motion to remove.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I would say that DHEC is solely responsible for that. I mean, we can't override the state as a body at the county. I mean, actually, that's not even what it's talking about. All right, all those in favor of removing item 3 signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
Item J, easements. I removed having a minimum width of 10 feet. Our technology has changed a lot. We're able to bore through, have a lot less of a footprint needed for these type of easements. So we leave that up for the developer to decide what is needed.
Well, and the reason we did that was we had a lot of discussion about, in the old days, what you needed easements for, and now those easements may not need to be as large because of technology.
Correct. So have a motion to remove that minimum, having a minimum width of 10 feet and from that definition, or from that sentence?
Oh, okay, but we remove that, so now there's no minimum, right?
Correct. It's up to the developer.
This is easements located along the side or line shall be provided as required for utilities and drainage. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting in a phone line, why would you need a 10-foot easement?
No, I'm not disagreeing, I just want to make sure I'm clear with what we're doing.
We've had a first and a second on that. All those in favor of that change?
Do we have a second?
Do we?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right, going into entrance. Housekeeping, I think that's supposed to be a hyphen. In dead end. And also I removed the requirements may be waived by the planning director due to typographical feasibility. Every effort shall be made not to have an entrance directly onto can't talk. Mouse getting dry road. The reason I removed that is really, that's something that should be going in front of the BZA. If you're not complying to the standard, then,
Well, in every effort, really, I mean, what does that mean?
right,
It was a vague
yeah, it's vague. So if you cannot comply to this standard,
requirement.
then BZA would be who gives you your waiver, not the planning department.
I would
Motion.
think that's,
Motion to
you make a
remove.
motion to make
I
that
make a
change?
motion to remove that.
Who's seconding that motion?
Second.
Second that motion. I absolutely think that should go in front of the BZA if it's going outside of the terms of our ordinance.
Right.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right, going down to 216. We added in our owner's engineer, and the reason why is the county has not had an engineer that I know of. And also, the owner's engineer is a licensed professional engineer. And he himself can make these determining factors. And what it boils down to is, why should we question that engineer's integrity? So, I changed that to owner's engineer. Why I'm in item A, 216A, I want to bring up something for discussion. If you go down to, let me find it here. This print is very small, so you have to bear with me. The planning director shall not approve any plat of a subdivision which fails to make adequate provisions for stormwater, flood, water runoff channels, or basins. I think that should be changed.
I actually had a big star by that one as well.
I'm sorry, where are you at? I lost you.
I'm in mid-sentence on A, paragraph A. The very center sentence. The planning director will not approve any plat or subdivision which fails to make adequate provision for storm or flood runoff. Let me ask staff, is storm or flood runoff handled by DHEC? So stormwater approvals are not managed by DHEC?
Well, yes, but when in a subdivision, typically, the planning director would be the one to ensure that there are, proper,
And we're gonna be looking at, what an engineer has provided as far as,
So you're looking to make sure it's been provided.
yes,
You're not making a decision, this is that you're approving it. if they didn't make adequate provision, how do you determine if they didn't make adequate provision?
So the way that the plan, and you would have to be a certified floodplain manager. You would have to have your CFM in order to make that determination. From, and I could be wrong in this, so don't quote me on this, I don't believe it is required, I think it's a preferred. But
So my question is, when I go to get my land disturbance permit,
Mhm.
they tell me what is required. I have to set it up according to the state, well, it's no longer DHEC, whatever their abbreviation is now, to their regulations.
So they should
Right.
also be looking at it, and again, because I don't do that, I don't know what one is looking at versus the other, so I'm probably not the best to give you a detailed answer on that.
And then when I go to, do my layout for the subdivision, if I'm not mistaken, does DHEC not also approve the retention ponds, the capturing of stormwater runoff, all of that in part of their requirement plan?
They are supposed to, yes.
Okay. So DHEC is the final say in the requirements. And that's where I was struggling with, because I could not find anything in here that dealt with stormwater runoff other than going to the state requirements. So, once again, we got a very vague, sentence in here that I think needs to be reworded, that basically the planning director is, verifying that.
It's a
No.
verification rather than, I read this initially as the planning director was the expert in stormwater. That it was the planning director's decision of doing this or not doing this, or you need to change it this way, or you need to remove this tree, or you need to improve this gully. Which I had always taken as an engineer handled that, not the planning department handled that.
It would depend, so, like, James was able to do that because he had that certification, so if they come on board and they have it, then great, they have the ability to look at it. If not, then it would be up to their discretion to either, I would assume, require an engineer to provide something and/or environmental services.
So, if I hear you correct, James was an avenue they could use instead of having to have an engineer. Is that what you're stating?
From my understanding, yes, I don't wanna,
I don't think that is compliant,
Well, if he's certified, then he's qualified.
but he has a conflict.
Yeah.
Well, so would
Huge
the
conflict.
owner,
and
so would the
again, I
developer.
could
Who
be,
has a conflict? Yeah.
I could be incorrect, but
Who has a conflict?
The planning director. He's working for the county, he's not working for the property owner.
Well, then the engineer for the
It
developer would have a
specifically
conflict
says right here,
too.
in that sentence, just prior to the one that you are considering, it says the county will review information to ensure that all stormwater runoff will be removed from the proposed developments and perpetually maintain drainage systems designed to avoid damage to personal property. So he is looking out for
Yes.
personal property,
And there's
not
nothing.
county property.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with him doing that, but he can't certify the stormwater runoff. I may be completely wrong, but I don't think the county employee can certify a private,
I don't think that that's
Versus-
what that requirement is
Okay.
saying.
was.
I think he has to look at it from outside the development. They may be meeting everything to do with the development's requirements and meet DHEC, or South Carolina Environmental Control Board.
Right.
But if that stormwater runoff at some, because it says in perpetuity essentially, at some point, he can estimate that at some point in time, this retention pond could fail and cause damage to personal property
okay,
just down from there. That's
So-
what they're giving him the opportunity to say, no, you need to consider this.
Who has the
That's the
final
way I
say
read it.
if he was to say no?
I was gonna say, so I think that you might have misunderstood me. So he is not, kind of what he, go along with what he's saying, right? So it's not like an individual signing off on something completely separate than what he or she is doing for the county.
Okay.
It is, they have a certification, they have the knowledge and the education to be able to say, hey, this is going, this should look like this based on the, size of this development. You should have that kind of thing. I
Okay.
don't wanna say it's like, hey, this is a design flaw, hey, this is not
So,
designed properly. Does
So
that
at
make
the end of the
sense?
day, when you have a conflict with the developer's engineer or the private property owner's engineer and the county, and a person that has, what do you call that?
A CFM, a certified floodplain manager.
At the end of the day, what is the remedy?
I would say you're gonna probably be looking at a third party.
So you have to go into
Who's the
mediation.
third party?
Ideally would be somebody that would be neutral in that decision, but,
Are they an expert in something, or are they a
ideally,
mediator?
yes, yeah.
My only, and mine might be slightly different, mine was the words, make adequate provision for, seemed to suggest that the planning department was engineering and saying, this is not adequate, or this is adequate. And I didn't think it was the role of the planning department to engineer, or determine if the engineer had made the right decision.
That's where I was going. Yes, there is a remedy if the water runoff is not retained by the developer. There is a remedy for that. I just see that this can go into some additional overreach because it's not really clearly defined. We do not have a wastewater, document at the county level, what defines that, but, DHEC does. Your PEs, they do. So you've got an individual, even though they may be, trained in a certain area of it, you run into a conflict where because there's not bound by a determined or defined document, where they can make decisions without having to reference back to something, because you got a PE saying, no, I did the calculations, this is right. So we're in this situation where, what is the remedy? Who is the expert in the field? And that's where I'm struggling with this definition, is it's almost like the planning director can override a PE and say, no, I want it done this way. And if you don't do it this way, it's not gonna be, I'm not gonna approve the well, that's what it says.
That's the way I'm reading it. That's the way I'm reading it as
Yeah.
well.
It
Whether-
says they shall
It
not
needs to be
approve.
worded better
Huh?
It
because
says they shall not approve.
Yeah, it says they shall not approve, so that's the way it's read.
But can I,
Really,
can I,
the-
can I
to your
mention one
point-
more thing?
Sure.
I'll wait. Just one more thing. The only thing I'm concerned about is that if we take these two sections out and include the owner's engineer, we're taking the county completely out of this decision. Our planning director, whoever that person may be and whatever their level of education, is the only check the county has on outside individuals. This, including DHEC and possibly the owner's engineer. Now, we've got a county engineer,
We don't have a county engineer.
Who is our county engineer?
We do not have.
Back in the day.
We don't have,
So we
so
don't
right
have
now, we don't
county-
have anybody.
okay, well, I didn't know that.
So we're adding somebody to make sure there's at least somebody.
Okay, well, the planning director, right now, it's the planning director and that was the only person until we had owner's engineer.
So let's walk through this process.
But you're taking out the planning director
No, so the planning director's gonna review it, but he's not gonna be able to deny it. But what the planning director can do,
Okay, so what power does he have if he disagrees to protect the county?
To go
or
back.
personal property?
to go back to DHEC.
No.
Let me say, I'd like to make a motion that we ask Mr. Root to look at this specific line item
Right.
based on the discussion that has taken place here to make sure that, one, the proper authorities are the ones looking at and regulating this,
And approving.
and approving. Ultimately, the planning department's gonna look at it and say, you've done all the stuff and you've gotten all the right approvals, but there's an entity that is approving it outside of here. And have Mr. Root look at this and make sure that the wording is as we are discussing that it should be, or correct as it is.
Right.
So that's my motion. I realize that was a long
Do we have any intention of having a county engineer in the future? If not, do we need to remove that verbiage?
We keep
I
hoping.
can't say one way or the other. It's not.
There was one back in the day, like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That's just stayed there.
But it says it, in writing by the county engineer, and if there's not a county engineer,
Right, that's the
It has to
conflict.
be the owner's engineer.
Yeah.
So we had to put somebody in there.
well, I get that now, but I still don't like about taking out the planning director completely.
Well, no, my motion, or what
Well, I
I was talking
understand.
about was not taking them completely out, it was to, well, you got a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I've got a motion to clarify that, especially make adequate provisions. That statement sounds like the planning director is potentially overriding DHEC. And,
No, I don't like that.
and I don't know that that power should be vested there. And I just want to make sure Mr. Root reviews that to make sure that that's not, how I'm interpreting it is how not it's actually interpreted. Was there a second on that?
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion with regard to that motion? All those in favor of Mr. Root doing that signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
All right, so down to section 32-216B, plugged in owner's engineer. Do we want to hold off on that until we get,
Can we make that part of what Mr. Root looks at?
so I'd like to make a motion to add B into the prior motion.
I'll second that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Let's see. Effects, go down to item D.
D's broken. It says the owner's engineer shall study and provide the planning director and county engineer. Impossible.
Just so we do have
Missed that one.
professional services where we can bring someone on to represent as an engineer when we don't actually have a position like that.
Yeah. If, I'm gonna read the whole thing, but if D had some mention of DHEC in there, I mean, you could almost get rid of, if I'm reading everything in there, get rid of A, and probably B too. Because that's exactly what that says, is he's providing assurances to the county and the county engineer. I mean, I know you need to fix that, or we need to fix that, but
Yeah, I agree with you. That takes care of your concern you had in the definition of A.
it does. If this meets what we're trying to achieve as far as,
Do we want to add D into Mr. Root's observation of this paragraph section?
yeah. And I did have a question on, before we just, pass that on to Mr. Root. Receive an approved appeal from,
Well, it depends upon what kind of appeal he's applying for. Whether it be an interpretation of a definition which would come in front of the planning commission, or a variance.
so could we say like from the appropriate governing body or something to that effect?
Receive approved appeal from appropriate governing body.
So I second that.
So we have from appropriate government body added to the end of that statement. All those in favor of that change signify by saying aye.
And then D's going, that's also going to root those three paragraphs?
Yes.
A, B, and D.
I don't think we made a motion to that, but I'll make a motion that D also goes to Mr. Root, because could eliminate or change A and B as well,
Or consolidate them
or
into one?
consolidate that into one better document. So I made a motion to have that sent. Do I hear a second on adding that?
Second. Whoever-
Seconded,
I'll vote yes, either way.
and all those in favor, say aye.
Unanimous.
All right, let's go to section 32, 217. Item A4.
Wait a minute,
You skipped.
wait a minute.
You
Back
did
up.
something.
New name, oh, we got removals in here.
At least 20 feet.
Section Echo.
Easement.
Oh, good.
Floodplain.
Thanks for keeping me on line. 216.
Unobstructed easement, you have at least 20 feet in width, you took it out.
Yes, I did remove that because that should be up to the engineer to design.
Motion to remove that statement.
I'll second. Mr. Haney seconds that. I would agree that it's up to an engineer, not us setting some arbitrary number. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Unanimous.
Item 4, we removed the whole highlighted item.
And the intent of that was restricting the use of private property or something like along those lines? As far as removing it?
Well, one, it was really, we could not find where it was used in the document. The low-lying lands along water course, all of this is regulated, if I'm not mistaken, for as a buildable area, it could not be built in a flood zone. So that regulation takes care of that issue, with exception of agricultural buildings, if I remember correctly.
Agricultural buildings, or there are design requirements or design alternatives for building within a
Right.
floodplain.
And this was restricting some of those things.
So it's in conflict with other regulations with regard to what you can and can't do in
Correct.
floodplains. Okay.
Okay. I'm good.
And so you made a motion to remove this?
Yes.
Was there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor of removing that, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
Keep moving, let's go.
All right,
Yeah.
didn't skip anything you can do.
Down to 17A1 is where you are.
So we're at,
Removal.
section 32, 217A. I removed the first sentence, where a public water main is within 1,000 feet of the subdivision boundary, the developer shall connect, it's crossed out, what does that say? Oh, there too, and install adequate
Central water facility.
central water facility. That is in violation with DA.
And you're suggesting that somebody that is developing anything, they bring water 1,000 feet. I mean, it would be in the
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
With a I think it's a 6-inch line, if you're going down, remember correctly? Yep, 6 inches or greater. So that's a tremendous cost, especially if you're dealing with bedrock, things like that. Not only that, you can't require it of them, because if they want to seek a private water or a commercial well, real commercial well for subdivision, they can do that. That is their option. We should never limit their options on what they can do, and is allowed by state law.
I'll make a motion to remove that section as highlighted in yellow.
I'll second that.
Is the rest of that sentence appropriate?
To the best.
So it's just saying where they do access public water, that it'd be 6 inch or better.
Right, or if they get it, the director allows them to
Reduce the diameter.
reduce the
Reduce
dam.
it down.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to remove that, and you've seconded that. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Item 2 was just the renaming. Item 4, all utility lines within public road right-of-way, was added.
Public road should be located in number 2. Public road, okay.
Well, that was just an ad, right? Nothing there?
Yes, it was an ad, because that should not affect private roads.
As far as where they put that line.
Yes, correct.
Do we need to make a motion on that?
Yes, I make a motion.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
You're now on B.
Yes, individual wells. I've removed if a public water system is not available. Hold on. Why did I remove that?
Well, it seems to go along with if a water main is within 1,000 feet, now you're giving them the option to use a well.
I don't think I meant to remove that.
Wait, yeah, we did.
We did?
If you leave it there, then it makes that
Oh, yes,
section
you're right.
inconsistent with what we just changed before.
You're right. So that's the reason I removed that, because it is,
It implies that you have to connect to a public
Right,
water.
it's
main.
suggesting that you have to connect to city water.
If you don't fix that, then what you did earlier doesn't matter.
Right.
so make a motion to remove if a public water system is not available.
I will second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
You've added under fire hydrants.
So,
There's where you need minor subdivisions and family transfer subdivisions.
correct. I think that used to read as exempt subdivisions, if I remember correctly. Does
Yeah.
someone have the original
Yep.
document?
Says accept.
Except, yeah. Fire hydrants shall be required for all subdivisions except minor subdivisions, exempt subdivisions, or where individual wells are used.
Right, so that exempt subdivisions, I could not find exempt subdivisions anywhere else in this document. So, the other type of subdivision I found in this document was family transfers. So we replaced exempt subdivisions with family transfer subdivisions. Especially because there's only 2 types of subdivisions called out.
Makes sense.
Make a motion to make that change.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Unanimous?
I was reading, so.
Um,
I'm so
Yours is the only
sorry.
one I didn't see. If you did or didn't.
Give it up.
Yep, okay.
Unanimous, sorry.
Was there something you was wanting to add? No, okay. Wastewater facilities. This is the same thing. This should be up to the developer's discretion. And it states where a public sanitary sewage system is reasonably accessible or available, the applicant shall connect to the same and provided sewer accessibility to each lot in the subdivision. This should strictly be left up to the developer. There's no reason to tie their hands and make them run sewer uphill.
I'll make a motion to remove that highlighted area in item 1.
I second.
Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
D3, we've got a sentence that says where public sanitary sewage systems are reasonably accessible or available. I removed that and put in are not desired by the subdivider.
That aligns 3 with 1.
Yes.
Motion to make the change.
Second that.
I have a question on it. Where sewer systems are not desirable by the subdivider, central or individual waste collection treatment systems may be provided. These systems must be approved, yes, by DHEC. Okay, and we've got the name change there.
Yes.
All those in favor of that change signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
All right, so this deals with section 32-218, non-residential subdivisions. So there's only 2 types of subdivisions called out in this document when it deals with residential and non-residential. In here, B2, right-of-ways, this deals with commercial type subdivisions, and it's requiring them to be paved. In some commercial environments, you do not want a paved right-of-way going to the yard. A good example is the rock quarry, those type of areas.
The kiln yard.
Yes, lumber yards, where there's a lot of heavy traffic, track traffic going across it, you do not want a paved. So it's really left open. I removed that out. It just states that it shall be adequate to accommodate the type of volume of traffic anticipated to be generated. So I make a motion to remove and paved.
I'll second. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Unanimous.
I removed item B3 and B4. B3 moved to chapter 26 under roads and bridges for further discussion. I make a motion.
I'll second that.
This is just B3 that deals with that.
Just B3. I'm just seeing if there's any reason why that needs to be in this chapter.
It's dealing with road design.
Yeah, I would think it should be put in roads area, so. All right, any discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Removed item 4 completely. So that's B4.
The note that says lot density needs to be restricted in the zoning of commercial properties, that's just information.
That was just a note we put in there. Basically, this will be governed by the zoning document.
It's just gonna need, did we see the need to, well, every effort shall be made, again, that's
Very vague.
vague. Yeah. I'll make a motion that we remove that
So
paragraph.
why the whole? I mean, what if you changed every effort to shall be made to consideration should be made or shall be made. I mean,
Yeah, I understand where you're
you
going,
know,
but
I mean, we are talking about, you know, protecting residential properties, citizens' personal property and things like that. And, I mean, if you had an established neighborhood and somebody slapped a, you know, 20-acre commercial property right next door to it,
so when we go into, if I'm not mistaken, into the commercial property part of the zoning, they have additional setbacks in there to accomplish this.
Yeah, I think this is redundant to what they
okay, well,
had in
that would be
38.
good.
And
So
if
it's
my-
not that we're just removing,
It's
Correct.
it's
it's not
vague,
just going away.
I know the
it's
junkyard.
vague, and we have specifics in
Yes,
38.
there's
Yeah.
setbacks, but it doesn't specifically say, so the thing that I would say is permanently landscape buffer strip when necessary. So that's, I mean, I know that
Yeah.
I'm just kind of talking, right? I know you can't, well, I won't say that, but, in the zoning districts, a landscape buffer is not required for, in the setback to reduce noise.
What does it say?
I think
Depends on your zoning.
Depends on what it is, right?
depends on the zoning. And
Depends
also-
on whether it's a,
And it's labeling what the setback is, not, so that could be open space, that could be that portion of what is in that setback, whether it's landscape, whether there's a vent, that's up to the property owner.
except for junkyards.
Except for
Except for
junkyards.
junkyards,
Yeah,
correct.
right.
Okay, I'm good. It's so vague, it doesn't, there's nothing you can do to make it better. You have to rewrite.
Sorry.
I'll second that motion, Nick's made.
Okay. All right. State the motion again, please,
Motion was to remove, the paragraph in section B4.
before. All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Item 5.
Normally implies that there's some exemption, which
Some exemptions, I
There's
removed that
not.
out, so they should not be
it's
any
just a
exemptions.
clarification.
You what?
It's just a clarification, really.
And I think this goes into what you was talking about.
Yep. I'll make a motion to remove that highlighted yellow, the word normally.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nix. All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
Can I go back to number 4 just one second? And I know Dave said that the lot density sentence in there was just a comment, but if you look in the previous section that's got, when I was reading it, it looked to me like that was a change instead of a comment. So is there some way we can make a notation in the final copy that goes for changes or approval?
Is what you're saying, this final copy looks like it's an
Yeah,
addition
it looks like an addition
as opposed to a notation.
opposed to
I mean, if you want to make it an addition, let's talk about it, but if it's just a comment that, you know, was
Yeah, it needs to
intended
take-
to strike up
Do
conversation
you
or
all see what we're
discussion.
talking about? On the, not the blue markup, but the final print here, it's written in there as if it was an addition.
So we're all clear on that? And I mean, I do understand that that was just a comment we were going
Comment.
to have.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, is item 3,
right.
right? That needs to be removed from, or,
You look like you're down on 220 now, 32, 220, is that right?
no, 32 to 19.
Still?
I think you're done. Unless, did we not do number 5?
Yeah, we did.
Yes, I don't. The only change there, you're right, 32 to 20. Don't mind to question you.
Please do. Please do.
I changed the word from may to shall. There's no reason to hold up a family transfer or a minor subdivision if they're not doing any changes for as new roads and if they have the final plan.
Right.
Can you think of one?
If it is coming off of a state road, we have to have a state encroachment permit, which could hold that up.
Because of,
we have to have, so if they're subdividing, so it's 5 acre parcel,
Mhm.
okay? And they're subdividing it in half, okay? So 2 and 3. And they're both, the only access is off of a state road. They have to have encroachment permits for both properties before we can sign off.
So the encroachment permit that's already there is not any good?
It may not be.
Because you've added parcels and additional encroachments.
Okay,
Correct.
so we
And
need to
I'm
fix
saying
that verbiage.
raw land, right? Maybe not something that's already been developed on, but raw land with the intent to develop. It's
So the
it's
state,
in the ordinance that, encroachment is.
Well, this does specifically say containing no new roads. So if he's already got a permit and they divide the property such that they can both use the existing,
But a road and an encroachment are not the same thing.
right, so she's saying the,
Access
daily,
of the
what do they
state.
call it, the daily travel, trips per day, daily, what is,
But you're,
Well, you got 80
trips.
average daily
Trips.
trips.
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's probably more geometry of separating driveways
your
and things of that
speed,
nature.
their speed limit, all of that. That's something that they determine.
But that would not be on this because there's no new roads created.
But
And
it's
it's not a road.
But it's the access.
the access.
DHEC, if you're going onto a state road, DHEC has to approve your access onto
Okay.
that road. With the exception that DHEC, if you do adjoin state road property, they cannot prevent you from accessing the state road. They can give you the permit, which then makes it legal, but they can't stop you from doing it. So the question then becomes, at that layer is, are we in conflict?
So they can give you, typically, you're gonna see two things, right? You're either gonna get the encroachment permit, or they will give you like a conditional letter that is valid for so long that they would, one or the other, we accept both, but they would have to have something saying that they've gone to DOT and they have
So why,
acknowledged it.
my question is, why are y'all involved with this if it's a state road?
Currently, it's because it's in the code.
As I say, it's in the
It's in the
ordinance, as far as
ordinance,
when it got
I
right
understand it's in the
there.
ordinance, but I'm trying to wrap my head around of why are y'all the gatekeepers for the state roads?
I would assume because if we are approving a piece of property to be subdivided without access, it can come back to us and say, we essentially are landlocked. Because if we don't require them to go to SCDOT and get that approval or conditional approval, and they come back and say, well, now they're saying I can't access my property, or they sell it, they sell the property, that could come back and potentially be an issue.
I could understand that potentially being an issue, I'm just still trying to, and I may be off in that field here. So one, you can't landlock the property anymore. State law has taken care of that. State law governs state roads. Further on in this article, I believe it gives you the permission to contact these other agencies, to let them know what's going on, with subdivisions, if I'm not mistaken. So my question is, really, this should be nothing more than approval and a notification.
So can I point out to you where it's at, so you can, let me make sure it's in yours, to 32,222.
32, 222, okay,
8, 10.
10. Is that
Okay.
for? So we need to fix
This may not mean anything to this specifically, but it looks like the last edit to this portion of the ordinance was,
What if it said the planning director shall approve a minor or family transfer subdivision containing no new roads or encroachments after reviewing the final plan?
Or
The encroachment is the issue.
yeah,
Sounds
state
like-
road encroachment permits.
So if there were no new roads or encroachments, then the shall would suffice, would be appropriate. Is that a correct statement? Is there anything other than encroachments that would prevent you from giving that final approval? If,
the planning director shall approve.
I don't know what the definition of encroachment is.
I tell you what, let's make a motion to postpone this until further research from the planning department.
I'll second that. What we're trying to do, if I understand correctly, by changing the word from may, is may gives the planning director
Discretion.
discretion in an area where we're trying to create consistency among planning directors. And one planning director may work off a set of mental criteria, and another planning director may work off a different set of mental criteria. And may is the word that makes that subjective. So I'll second your motion to delay that for us to talk about that, and you all give us some input.
That works for me. I do have one question. What was the reason behind removing exempt?
Because there is no definition of an exempt subdivision, there's only minors and family transfer subdivisions.
All right.
So we've got a motion, we've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And we've got just a few more, and then it all turns to renaming DHET.
So this will be quick.
If everybody is okay with going another 10 minutes? I'm being optimistic, as Ms. Fleischer laughs at me.
Counting it down.
All right. So section 32, 221, we changed the sketch plan requirement for 10 housing units.
From 2210.
Yeah, from
Should we
20.
That just aligns it with chapter 26 roads.
It actually makes it more stringent. and-
Right.
And
And-
aligns it with the other.
It aligns it with the other, and that's what we're
I'll
trying
make
to
a
do.
motion to approve that.
Second.
And that's in 3 locations.
3 locations?
So let's go ahead and talk about the one in the middle there. Two.
10 is still considered minor,
Is the minor.
Right.
which, okay, hang on.
Is that what you
And the
mean?
minor is the only one required that can give you only a sketch plan. Anything above a minor, you have to have,
But I think the question is, when you say less than 10.
oh,
you're
less
not
than.
counting 10.
You're not counting 10, you're right. Is that less than?
That's what it says.
The planning department changes.
So
Or
you
it
have,
should
so
say
it's in
10 or
two
less.
spots, yeah, so it has proposed developments consisting of 10 new housing units shall schedule a sketch plan review prior to any formal application. Right below that in B says basic sketch plan, or optional.
Yeah, so you need
request.
to,
It needs
So-
to say 10 or more
10 or more, yep.
Yep.
in each location.
So
So
10's
actually-
correct in A.
In A, and then in the next one, it would be 11 or more.
Well, it needs to say
Yeah.
10 or more in A.
So you're wanting this type of sketch plan for a minor's.
Actually, 11's the break point, isn't it?
Yeah, 11's
Right,
right.
Yeah,
that's what
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
11 or
So
more then.
11 or more is gonna be
Greater
a
than 10.
major. 4 to 10 is your minor, which they still have to provide something, but I think this is gonna be more applicable to 11 or more.
Yep.
Well, no, this is
Consistent.
the sketch plan, right?
We're talking about for the sketch plan.
Yes. So this this is just the sketch plan. This is the guy drew it up on a napkin and handed it to you.
Question for the staff, is this gonna significantly increase your workload?
Now you ask.
Hey, but we just gave her additional authority.
Not for this.
So let's ask staff the second part of that question then. We're trying to make this consistent with other components. Do you see this as a good move? Even though the workload increases?
I'm gonna have to say, my jury's still out on that, but I do see where we just need to clarify a threshold above and below, and not leave out any numbers in between.
Okay, so this right here is the sketch plan qualifications for, a minor subdivision,
And minor subdivision is
4 to 10.
for 210. So 10 is a minor subdivision, 11 is not.
Correct.
Those are the requirements for sketch plan for a major subdivision.
And a
So,
major subdivision is?
11 or more. So
Right.
what you're putting here is you're having to do,
Exactly what you just told me.
yeah,
So this just is reconfirming what you're already doing, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't change your world that much, does it?
so I guess I may have misunderstood. I was thinking that you're doing this amount of sketch plan, this amount for a minor. which
No.
that's
No,
not- That's not
no.
what we're talking about, okay. I
All right.
apologize, sorry.
So A is correct.
So actually, were they even following
No.
they weren't even following this guideline because it requires anything less than 20.
Yeah, right. But we'll get to that point where they had
Well,
that room.
they were actually exceeding the requirements of
They were
this,
exceeding the requirements, yes.
because they were doing stuff, 15s that didn't need to be done according to this, that I guess, are they required to be done by some other?
Well, they had some
Other-
leeway in here. We'll get to that as we go through.
Say again?
They had some room for requiring additional,
Some subjective stuff in there.
yes,
Yes.
from
Okay.
20 units and less, the way it's written. We'll get to that.
So should it say 4 to 10 instead of just 10? To be the whole definition of minor?
Well, I don't know where the 4 to 10 came from. I think that's
That's not
just,
minor.
That's really about roads.
yeah.
With regard to
Well, then
roads.
we'd have to figure out what happens with 3.
Yeah,
So
you're exactly right.
ideally,
I think you're gonna want a sketch plan for any,
well, we could sketch plan optional for anything up to and including 10 units. And more, the conference or whatever for 11 or more.
well, 11 or more, you gotta have a detailed plan.
Right. Well, but the idea is
So-
that the sketch plan comes in before that detailed plan.
I know,
Says I'm gonna do, 16 or 200 houses, here's what it's gonna look like. Here's
Right.
what we're proposing, and then we say, okay, go take that to, and start developing a preliminary plat. If someone comes in and says, I'm doing 8 houses, and we say, or 8 lots, and we're like, you don't need to do a sketch plan, just come in with a survey.
I think your interpretation of a sketch plan is different than mine.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is in my past dealings with the county, Virginia, I think that was her name, or is it Vivian?
Vivian.
Vivian, you draw it up on a piece of paper,
Right.
hand drawing, and that was your sketch plan. Whereas when you go above 11, you gotta have a, what's the word I'm looking for here?
It's a scale.
Professional
Yeah,
sketch plan.
so,
But if you go to C1, you're talking about a drawn to appropriate scale not less than 200 feet to 1 inch and include vicinity map. I mean, the sketch plan in this is not what you're thinking of.
Where are you at on that?
Just one page beyond where we are.
One,
I'm sorry. That's section 32-221 C. 1.
detail, that's,
Under sketch plan,
yeah.
goes A, B, and C.
So C1 is a detailed sketch plan required for 11 or more.
Right.
I think that might, is that supposed to be?
So that's what I'm
it's
stating.
gonna be-
There's a difference between a detailed sketch plan and a sketch plan.
We probably have to go to definitions on that one.
We would.
So it looks like the wording should be, in part A, it should say consisting of more than 20, or more than 10 new housing units. And then in Bravo, it should say for developments less than or equal to 10 dwelling units. And then Bravo, and then Charlie, actually, that should be not indented, or it's indented like it should be. Detailed sketch plan required for 11 or more dwelling units. Is that right?
That's what we're trying to get to, yes.
And I understand the kind of the back of the napkin stuff, but in our definitions, it goes, sketch plan goes to plat, plat goes to sketch plan, and that basically spells out.
Where's those definitions at?
In 32-212 definitions.
Sound like we got some more work to do.
Sound like time to go home.
Yeah, it's getting late.
Sketch plan, C plat.
And then plat goes number 1 sketch plan.
Oh, yeah, it does. Simple sketch.
Sketch plan is a simple sketch of proposed subdivision laid out showing roads and other principal features. The sketch plan.
So I guess what we don't have is a definition of detail.
Well, I think you get into,
Would a detailed sketch plan not be good to scale?
I was thinking there was something about it to scale. Well, it's, the sketch plan
This-
shall be drawn
that's on
under
the,
one.
that's on the requirement
Detail.
of 11 and
Yeah.
more, or 20 and more in this document.
Both are called sketch plans.
Yes.
One's just relaxed and one's just more specific with detailed drawings of, to scale.
But if they're both called that, then we probably just need to get some clarity.
It's still a sketch plan. It's still a document that's handed to you. Does it matter? This is just saying that it can be a relaxed hand-drawn, or it has to be based on the number of units. Our question, I think, is, does your workload change because we've reduced it from 20 to 10? And above the 10 now requires a plat. It seems like it puts the onus on the owner more at that point to provide you something more detailed.
I would assume that the workload would increase with having just a basic sketch plan being fine for 4 to 10. The detailed sketch plan, because it's more detailed, there's a lot of gaps that are closed, there's a lot less guessing, there's a lot less gray area, it's black and white. We have a lot of gray.
I would just think it would give you more detail.
But is that not what you're already doing? I mean, the two documents you showed us was for, 11 or more. So they're already doing this. So far as increasing the workload, I don't think that's,
Yeah, we're not requiring a detailed sketch plan for 4 to 10.
No. All we're saying is that we're giving you something other than a pencil drawing, and you're going on a pencil drawing. Is that a 10 or is that a 12 or a 14? We're just saying that at 11 or more, we're gonna give you a better document than what we were giving you before we made this change.
well, there's some additional items in that detailed sketch plan requirement that it falls into. So right now, and this is something that we're
Well, the
probably.
reason we want a detailed sketch plan for more than 10 is because of the road requirements.
Road requirements and runoff, all this other stuff
Exactly.
that comes into play with it.
I think we just need to make this change from 10 to 11 in the appropriate places.
All right, Dave, can you go back through your,
Yeah, section 32, 221, alpha. Second line, consisting of more than 10 new housing units.
You say 11 plus, because 4 to 10 is,
More than 10? Greater than 10?
No.
11 or more?
No more than 10.
Oh, I think they're going
I
above
think we're
10.
doing the big one,
Oh, never mind.
11 plus.
Are you in Bravo?
no, we're in
It's
alpha.
an alpha,
So alpha is consisting of 10,
more than 10.
yeah, it's more than 10 units, yeah. Consisting of more than 10 units. Is that what you're saying, Dave?
That's right.
More than 10 units.
Okay.
And then Bravo, basic sketch plan for developments of
Less than or equal to 10.
10 or less.
10 or less.
10 or less, however
10 or
you
less.
guys want it. And then Charlie is 11 or more.
And then, yep,
Can we
Right.
make alpha 11 or more too? So we have
Sure.
consistency?
Yep,
Yep.
that works.
11 or more, yep.
No.
And that is the motion from Mr. Nix. I will second that motion. And I am very willing to listen to staff after we put this document together to say we really need it because. But for now, I think that this change, I'm gonna second that motion from Mr. Nix, that this change take place. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Unanimous?
So, item Bravo 2, this was the area that allowed them to require a more detailed sketch plan for that 20 or less. So I want to remove and may require a detailed sketch plan to be submitted.
Because we no longer need that,
You no longer need that.
need that detail because it's already
Second that.
defined. It's already
I
matches
second
the
that
previous.
removal.
Okay?
All those in favor of that removal signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It just makes it consistent now, and so there isn't a need for discretion. All right, it looks like we've moved to K, you've added an I.
Yes, we
Okay.
added in I.
L, instead of
Or L, yes, L.
L.
That's lowercase.
And I'm wondering if that was another comment.
No, that was not, because this is part of them notifying you up front. We have a problem right now, is the, developers are developing subdivisions with.
They're
the-
not forthcoming on how they want to disposition the roads.
Yes.
Correct,
Okay.
and therefore we're requiring it up front. Are you planning on,
Turning this over to the county.
turning this over to county? So there's none of this building it as a private road and then us trying to figure out, was it built to county standards?
Didn't I read earlier in the county standards, maybe not in this session, but that the state will, the county will not accept roads that are not
You
built?
did, and we're fixing to get to that portion of it.
Okay.
Here's the thing,
But does that not
it has not worked in the past.
reinforce this statement?
It has not worked in the past, and we're gonna beef that up some,
Okay, all right,
so.
I'm with you, go ahead.
Can I simply ask then, on L, and if it's only if it's correct, on A, we have an accounting, on K, we have the proposed, on L, we have a statement.
Okay, well, let's change it. What,
What do you want
Just as an article.
just wants to
it
say
says
a
you
statement.
Provide a statement.
oh, a statement,
road.
yes, okay,
A
yes.
statement if the,
Statement as to whether the road will be built to public,
as to, yeah, I like that.
just adding the article.
Correct.
Statement as to whether the road will be built to public road standards.
Who made that motion?
Ed,
I'll make that motion.
All right, and I'll second that motion. All those in favor of that change signify by saying aye. DHEC,
Alright, so we're going all the way to,
page 18.
3 Bravo?
Layout of roads including right-of-ways, removing public from crosswalks.
I have your 3.
3 Bravo.
Additions. You took out public crosswalks. Is that where you are, read the safe place?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Removing public from crosswalks because they could be
Yeah.
any kind of private crosswalk.
Right, in a private subdivision. H, I'm sorry.
You're gonna remove all these together? And
Yes, we can do item 3 together if y'all would like.
actually, it looks like all the rest of that's DHEC changes.
Motion to revise 3 Bravo and hotel as written.
I'll second it. All those in favor, say aye. And the rest of it, DHEC until item 6, page 19. It's just insure
Just a
versus
friendly
insured.
word.
Yeah, that's just housekeeping.
Editorial.
Housekeeping, DHEC on page 20. What is 11? Any parks?
Yeah, any parks and other public, add in there public or community spaces. We're defining public and we're defining community. So that will make better sense to those who are reading this document in the future. So we're adding in or community and taking out or other, or not taking out or in front of other.
Mr. Haney's making the motion. I'll second the motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right, so this is the portion you was referring to earlier. And this is the area I'm still struggling with. How do we keep a developer from coming in, developing a private road, and then turn that private road over to the county as a public road? And in doing that, decrease the minimum setback requirements on those lottage because of the additional right-of-way requirements on a public road. That somehow needs to be indicated within this document, that they understand that if they no longer meet the minimum lot requirements according to the zoning requirements, that we cannot take over this as a public road.
So we say that on a survey that this will not be turned over. My bigger concern, and maybe this isn't the place, is what I'm seeing is a developer is building the road. He has to build the road as a private road. When he does so, he has to now say that it's a private road. And tell me if I'm wrong. He sets up an HOA. He wants to turn it over to the county. The county has given a wink and nod that sure, we're gonna take it over if you built it to public standards. But he's signing a document saying that this wink and a nod isn't actually happening. And he's having to build it. So in other words, the HOA, he's setting up an HOA saying it's gonna be turned over to the public, so I'm not gonna charge a road maintenance fee because it's gonna be turned over to the public. But he's having to sign a document saying it's private until it's actually finished. Is that incorrect?
What I've found is that we're having language going in both directions on plats, and it is confusing.
What I think needs to happen is say, you're either building a private road and sticking to it, or you're building it to public road standards, and our county council will vote to accept it.
But that needs to be a parallel path when they're putting in the permit for subdivision.
Yes,
It shouldn't be,
because right now we're set up so that the county council has to approve that public,
well, they have to, well,
but it's private until then.
if I'm not mistaken, the county administrator is the one that accepts the roads.
County administrator approves it?
Yeah.
So how do we get that in writing on the front end, I guess is
That's
what
what I'm
this is
trying
dealing with.
to do with
Can we
this.
put this one off until
I
a
think we
later
need
time?
to.
But just so that, because I get calls frequently where a developer's going, what is y'all system up there? Because I'm having to build this road, I'm building it to public standards, but the county will not tell me whether they will accept this road until after I've sold the neighborhood. And I set up an HOA based on it being turned over, And now, I don't know if it is or not, and if it's not, I have to maintain it as a developer, or I gotta figure out how the HOA is gonna handle it.
So I make a motion that we postpone this, turn this over to the planning staff for them to come back with verbiage that will include, the ability for it to be built as a public road up front
With an assurance.
with an insurance that's gonna be adopted if it adheres to the public road standards. And also, I'm sorry?
We'll probably have to weigh in on that.
Yeah, and we definitely want, I mean,
Well, that's why I say planning staff. And then also, a means to turn a private road, so let's say this subdivision, the additional property behind it, is developed out. And they're gonna need to turn that private road into a public road. There's gotta be a means to turn a private road into a public road. And within that means, it cannot infringe upon the zoning setback requirements.
in other words, it needs to adhere to all of the requirements.
Correct.
If it wasn't built up to par to begin with, then it doesn't qualify.
Right.
But if it was built up to par and does qualify and has asked the county to take it over, then the county should let them know before they start pouring concrete that they will take it over because they're gonna come and keep an eye on its construction.
And
It's in the
obviously, this is for new developments, because there's plenty of old ones
Old
that
ones
are
that don't,
already out
yeah.
of compliance that.
Right.
Right, but this
That
is,
are owned by the county, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
We have a motion to postpone.
motion to
The second.
postpone with those
With
additional
the-
items
yes, I'm
brought
sorry.
back to us. All right,
All those in favor for that motion, say aye. Aye. Does this finish this portion of the document?
with the exception of one thing.
There's one more thing.
Section 32-224. I do not know why minor is in this, sentence.
Should be any subdivision plat, right? Isn't that what we talked about? Make a motion that we remove minor.
I second that.
Without any discussion, all those in favor of removing that word, signify by saying aye.
Unanimous?
Have we finished this document?
We have.
We are through item 8 then. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye.